This is Will from What If Concepts. I want to offer you a great resource that's really framed a lot of powerful conversations for me. The book is called Governance as Leadership, Reframing the Work of Nonprofit Boards, written by Richard Chait, William Ryan, and Barbara Taylor. And essentially what it comes down to is understanding that there's three lenses that you can look at the nonprofit or social sector through. And I think these are really helpful when you're thinking about big conversations, or if you find yourself getting to consensus very quickly on a major decision. Occasionally it's a helpful framing for thinking about alternative ways of looking at it. So the three corners or three lenses that the authors of Governance as Leadership really recommend is this idea of fiduciary, which is really more of a sentinel, somebody who's crossing the T's, dotting the I's, making sure that the resources are there. This is very detail-oriented. The second one is strategic, so where are we going? And again, this is something that a lot of boards do well. They ask that sort of next level question. Does this get us towards our vision? Is it consistent with our mission? Things like that. The third corner, the top one, which typically doesn't find its way into as many organizations, is this idea of generative conversation. So generative essentially is a lens or a framework by which you are asking, are we asking the right questions? Typically generative questions aren't a yes, no, right or wrong, but they are questions that expose a greater conversation and typically elevate the board's thinking or the organization's thinking to come at the same conversation or the topic or the decision you're making from a different direction, and to more thoroughly understand the landscape surrounding you right now and the significance of your conversation, and also alternative mindsets or viewpoints that might be important. So I'll bring you more on this because there's some really powerful templates of what those questions look like. But I think if you find yourselves having conversations or just looking at your board agenda and finding out how much time do you spend in fiduciary mode. Most groups really like this because there's a lot of things you can do. This is action-oriented in the fiduciary mode. In the strategic mode, that tends to find less weighting in most board meetings, but it finds its way in. Generative is rarely preserved in an agenda or a meeting time. Occasionally you find it more in board retreats or annual retreats or things like that. So this is sort of part one of a longer conversation, but I encourage you to check out Governance as Leadership and start thinking about how you're framing your conversations.